evening, everyone. We have another episode of the Horror Appraisal, and I'm Sam.
And I'm Evan.
As usual, we have a pretty cool show for you. Tonight, we're going to pick up where we left off a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
That's right. We are doing the top 5 horror movies of 1984. This is our next installment, of course, doing year by year of the most fantastic decade in filmmaking, doing top 5 horror movies of each year. And we've got, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, Sam. We've got some pretty good ones lined up for you, and we're going to talk about a couple of surprises maybe too. Before
we get to that, we had some awesome people on Twitter do some retweets for us, and we promised some shout-outs. So it was basically they retweeted a tweet for us to...
They retweeted.
Subscribe to us. We put a subscribe tweet out there, and people retweeted it, so... Anyway, Gravedigger Glen, and that's at Necro Macabre. David Mambro at Bunky DM.
Papa loves Mambro.
Frank G at iBleedallMusic. Peter Kidder at Peter Kidder, no space. Hashtag 40s in first class, 40s with a Z. And that's at woke_Marcus_35. We'll spell these out in the description. Don't worry about that. Brandon Taylor Black, it's hyphenated, at B Taylor Black, not hyphenated. John E. Green at J Lee, that's JAYLEE 1103. K Miller at Kim DeMiller M, and Roy Aiken at L_Roy_Aiken. Thank you all. We really appreciate that. We look forward to having a long and compassionate relationship with you on Twitter, as special a relationship as you can have. Now, let's talk about our special movie, but we did not put in the top 5, and there's a reason we didn't put in the top 5.
That's cool. I actually thought we were going to wait and do that right before number 1.
No.
We're going to do it right now. Just get it out of the way.
So people don't be like, what is
That's a good point. So you and I decided to comprise a top 5 horror film list for 1984. Well,
it's been difficult.
It has been difficult. Here's the thing. There's a very, very good, great film that was made in 1984.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hard.
It's one of the best films of all time.
It's one of the best films of all time.
In any genre.
Yeah. I think every single one of my friends, this film is like in their top 10. I mean, how could it not be? Well, not trying to make you anticipate anymore, but what's the film, Sam?
Ghostbusters, directed by Ivan Reitman.
Of course, written by the great late Harold Ramis, starring Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, Ernie Hudson.
We met Ernie Hudson.
We did meet Ernie Hudson.
We need to meet some more Ghostbusters.
We have met him. The reason we were having a discussion about this, about how to, should we include Ghostbusters, because Ghostbusters, of course, when people think of the film Ghostbusters, I don't think people think horror movie.
That's true, and there's been controversy. I mean, I've posted some fan lists online, and people are like, you included Ghostbusters as a horror movie, and it's like, yeah, dude, it's got all the elements of a horror movie. It's just a little bit more mainstream and a little bit more approachable.
It is, and I still think of Ghostbusters as kind of a funny movie, but like, I think of Ghostbusters as a comedy first, but the way it did special effects, and of course, its content dealing with the supernatural. I mean,
it's an adult film in a lot of ways.
It's an adult film. It's kind of like a little adventure film. Gosh, Ghostbusters is one of the best films of all time. Special effects wise, cinematography is great.
If you really think about it, though, this movie is scarier than at least 2 of the films we've got in our top 5.
When I was a kid, like, I thought Gozer was so scary.
Yeah, Gozer was scary.
She comes out I just love this film. It's hard to be a kid in the 80s and not love Ghostbusters. I mean, we could talk about Ghostbusters just all night long by itself.
Yeah, and then you get into this big, long discussion about what is a horror movie, what makes a horror movie. I mean, so many horror movies are comedy and horror combined, and I mean, I think that's one of the trademarks of a good horror movie.
If we were doing Transylvania 6-5000, that's technically a horror film too, even though it's a comedy.
You know the differences between the two?
What?
Success.
Yeah, one of the films is good, is what I was going to say.
One's mainstream good.
Yeah, but yeah, so we had to shout out to Ghostbusters just because if we did a 1984 list, I didn't even mention Ghostbusters, I would think that people would wonder what the heck was wrong with us.
Yeah, so we got that out of the way now. What's number 5?
Number 5 of top horror movies for 1984 is a little cult movie that is based on a story by Stephen King, directed by Fritz Kirsch. It is the film adaptation of Children of the Corn.
That should speak volumes about what we had to pick from 1984. I mean, Linda Hamilton, she's not top of her game in this movie. I'm sorry.
Oh, man, but we're such Linda Hamilton fans.
John Franklin and Courtney Gaines, we both met them. They're part of the...
They play Isaac and Malachi, you know.
The two main characters of the Evil Boys.
Two big parts, in the film. You know, Children of the Corn is
it's just so mild.
It is kind of mild, you know, by today's standards. I've actually never really gotten the hugest appeal of Children of the Corn. I do see some of it. Like, I do think it's very interesting to always think of these societies that are run by children. You know, especially like, I'll tell you what I always think of it with Children of the Corn is I always think of Road Warrior, where like he finds like those children and like they kind of like...
That's Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
That was Beyond Thunderdome. My bad. That was Beyond Thunderdome. Gosh, I hate the fact that I got that wrong. Yeah, that was Beyond Thunderdome. And like there's like that society of children that like remember things from like the long ago. It's really cool. Like I do think stories like that can be interesting. Children of the Corn for me always falls a little flat.
They could have made it so much more violent, and I think that would have gone a long way. No offense to Fritz Kirsch, it's just so like
it's not. Why did we include Children of the Corn?
Because it was better than Night of the Comet.
Yeah, and Mutant.
And
so Sam and I kind of feel about the same about Children of the Corn. It's really not one of our favorite films, but 84 was a slower year for a lot of mainstream horror. Because of its cult status, it does have some cool themes to it. So we wanted to include it on the list, but we knew we were going to put it right at the bottom. I do think that another criticism I have of the film is I do think the narrative is a little confusing because we see all these events that are taking place, you know, in the present, like with Linda Hamilton and her husband, and then other parts of the story are narrated by a child in the past tense, like, but all this is happening right now. I just think it's a little weird.
It is. I don't know. Moving on. There's not really anything else I want to say about Children of the Corn.
Okay.
We could do a review. We could do a long video on movies that sucked in the 80s. And
a lot of people are gonna, you know, there are a lot of people who are fans of Children of the Corn.
I understand that there are people that are fans of Children of the Corn, but come on.
Yeah.
Really think about it.
I'm with you.
Number 4 is Chud.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers
with glowing eyes.
Really,
what they are is mutated bombs.
Yeah. You know, I didn't want to give Chud a chance when we recently rewatched it. I recalled not really liking the film that much. It honestly, it is a very slow kind of build up.
It builds up
but when it does, like when it finally gets there, like it's well worth the wait. Like I mean, the prosthetics in the film are good. The makeup in this film's great.
I think it's a fun story too, because I mean, in a lot of ways, it reminds me of Street Trash.
It does me too, actually.
You got like the mutation of the homeless population. It's kind of like, I mean, you what you have is a corporation. They're dumping waste in the sewer, and then it ended up being one of those things. They're like, hey, you can't do that. That's illegal. So they had to leave it. They couldn't move it. They couldn't transport it. So it was just kind of there. And I mean, you do have the all-star Home Alone cast.
Yeah, John Hurd and
Daniel Stern.
So the dad from Home Alone and half of the Wet Bandits.
Daniel Stern.
The non-Joe Pesci half of Wet Bandits.
John Hurd is a photographer in this, and he plays like the kind of... he's the hero.
He's kind of the investigative force into this, you know?
Yeah, there's some cops, but they're kind of... but then you got Daniel Stern, who is kind of like... He's a soup kitchen kind of guy. Yeah. And he works with the homeless population, and he's responsible for kind of discovering a lot of the cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller thing. The makeup is good. There's a really hot girl in this, Kim Greist, however you say that.
Greist.
There's a really cool shower scene with her in this apartment.
Oh yeah,
She's like a nude model.
Yeah. This movie for me doesn't have much other than like really good effects. This isn't a film that like I'm popping into the DVD player over and over like I would like, Halloween or another film.
It beat Children of the Corn because of effects, really. And the story was just a hair better.
Yeah. But so moving on to number 3, this is a film I'm excited for. Mm-hmm. Moving on to number 3 for the year 1984 it's actually a film. It is probably my top rated, and I don't know if it's everybody's. It's my top rated alternate holiday movie because it's a great Christmas movie. I recently just rewatched it. I actually got to go to an outdoor showing of it, but of course,
Hang on. Oh, it's not Silent Night, Deadly Night.
It is not.
Which came out the same year.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lethal Weapon is another great alternate Christmas movie, by the way. But that doesn't belong on this list. It is the Joe Dante directed cult masterpiece, Gremlins.
Yes, Gremlins. Don't feed them after midnight.
Gremlins is a great lesson for children about responsibility. You're given this great, fantastic thing, and you're just told some very simple things.
Mogwai.
Yeah, it's a mogwai. Don't get it wet. Don't feed it after midnight. Don't expose it to like bright light. And here's the deal.
It's a metaphor for being a parent.
It really is, but I think it's a metaphor for responsibility because. You want to know something? I'll tell you in a second. But this movie has great special effects, and of course, everyone's seen Gremlins. Everyone watching this video has seen Gremlins.
There's people to this day that have seen Gremlins when they were kids, and they're still scared of it. My girlfriend being one of them. Shout out to especially Brittany.
Yeah, hi, Brittany. But there's the scene where I bet I know the scene you're talking about. The scene where the mom's alone in the house and she backs up into the Christmas tree, and there's a gremlin in the Christmas tree. They used to scare the crap out of me.
It's possible.
But recently I had a dream. Okay, I want to tell you real quick. I had a dream, but I was at work, and all the eggs from Alien were in the back. Okay, and out of the eggs hatched, and gremlins came out of it. And then they went into the utility sink in my lab at work, and they turned it on. So I was wondering, what does this dream mean? And a couple of my friends said it means that your problems are going to multiply.
It means that you're going to review 1984 top 5.
But I thought that was pretty interesting because, it's the Gremlins they really are an allegory for responsibility. What happens when you neglect that responsibility. No, but it's also it's such a cool creature movie. It is so cool.
Joe Dante does
but really it's a funny movie. It's one of the fun. When the scene where the Gremlins are attacking the woman. Was she played by the woman? No, she wasn't played by the woman who played the Wicked Witch of the West. For some reason, I thought she was. But
that's a lot of years difference.
Well, that's true. But she was an old woman in 1985 or 84. I mean,
she was an old woman in
1939,
32.
Wait, 32. Yeah,
39,
early
39.
30s. That was Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
That
was the same year as the Blitzkrieg, I think.
That was a long time ago.
we got off on it. We're off topic. But it's a fun. Gremlins is such a funny movie, and I didn't even notice until rewatching it again because it had been years since I'd seen it.
It's scary when you're a kid.
The scene where they attack the woman who terrorizes the town. She's such a bitch, and they short out her chair because she's got one of those chairs that goes up and down the stairs for her, and she it tosses her out the window. It was so funny. I didn't understand as a child how funny that scene was.
Again, what's the difference between this and Ghostbusters? Success.
What do you mean, pal?
Ghostbusters is way more successful than Gremlins.
Oh, I thought you were saying the opposite. I was like, what do you mean? They're both pretty successful films.
Ghostbusters is there's merchandise still of it. Gremlins, yeah.
Oh, I mean,
I feel like
there were Gremlins lunchboxes too.
There were, but I still think Ghostbusters, because of its cast, is way bigger than Gremlins, and I think that's one reason people are afraid to call Ghostbusters a horror film.
I'm not disputing that.
We have met a couple people from this film, Corey Feldman and Zach Galligan.
Oh, yeah, we did meet.
And Zach Galligan, by the way, in Hatchet 3...
He was the sheriff in Hatchet 3.
He does this southern accent. Don't do that again, Zach Galligan.
Yeah.
Don't do that again. But you were good. I enjoyed you, but don't do
You were good.
Don't do the southern accent.
Yeah.
And Corey Feldman...
Corey Feldman's just kind of like, this is one
Honestly,
of his...
he was nice.
Yeah.
He was nice to me.
Oh, yeah, totally. Corey... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to talk about him in Gremlins. Yeah, Corey Feldman, totally down to earth. Hold on.
No.
I misspoke. Corey Feldman was approachable. He was very nice.
Not down to earth, but nice.
Okay, yeah, I misspoke.
I mean, you got your girlfriend prancing around in lingerie.
Yeah.
You don't care. She really looked uncomfortable at this event. I mean...
She's like, I feel like people are just looking at me at my body.
Okay, number 2.
Speaking of Corey Feldman
again. We were going to have Ghostbusters at number 2, and
then we decided to, we just don't want to say like there's a movie that's better than Ghostbusters because, oh my God, how are there movies better than Ghostbusters?
But then we wanted to be like, well, there's not a better horror movie than...
Right. This is where we fell into how do we make this freaking list and not put Ghostbusters as a horror movie? We've been
literally tossing this list around for like 2 months.
We've been taught, yeah.
Number 2, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, one of the best Friday the 13th in my opinion.
Is it your favorite? Do you think it's the best Friday the 13th?
This and then Friday the 13th Part 2 are my favorite Friday the 13th. I love this one.
I didn't. Well, whatever. We can talk about it some other time, but I don't know if 2 is better than 3. Anyway, but Friday the 13th Part 4, final chapter, it is so awesome. I remember like first getting this movie.
Jason!
I remember first getting this movie on DVD. Like, you and I were friends in college.
Yeah.
And, like, we got this movie on DVD, and, like, we couldn't wait to, like, watch it because it had been years since either of us had seen it. And, it's just, as far as being in the franchise, what a joke title, The Final Chapter. There were 6 more in the main franchise after that.
This really was the death of Jason. Mm-hmm. Jason really died in this. And a lot of people that aren't familiar with the series, they're like, Jason's indestructible. And no, he just wasn't killed bad enough in the first 3 movies. He was killed, but honestly, it's believable that he could have survived. And he was a roughneck. He was
a wood. That weird.
He was a woods kind of guy. He could have survived. Forget. He could have survived. But this is where he really dies. Corey Feldman is responsible for that. He hacks his face to shit. It's literally a pulp of blood and mess.
Do you know the guy who did this? Some of the effects stuff for that.
Directed by Joseph Zito.
Yeah, the way he got that sound effect for like the hatchet going through like Jason's head. I believe he was talking about how he used he talked about like cutting and breaking like stalks of celery and like asparagus and stuff like that. I thought that was very interesting because I was thinking of that sounds like, wow, that's actually perfect for that sound of like his head splitting open and everything else. I just thought that was quite interesting.
And also, I mean, there's some really cool things in this movie that we dig as horror fans. Just the dialogue behind the scenes. You've got Corey Feldman as a kid, and we can relate to him because he loves to make horror masks, and he has like this thing. And when this group of teenagers kind of comes in next door to the cabin that's for rent, he's peering out his window at night, and he sees nakedness. He sees nudity, and when he's like bouncing up on the bed, and he's squeaming and he's squealing. He's squealing and squirming, and he's kind of like, "Oh, I got a boner, don't know it. What is happening in my balls and my dick?" When his mom comes in and he fakes sleep, but his mom and his sister, whoa,
yeah, they're hot.
Yeah. Who else is in this of notoriety? Who was in the most recent Willard movie?
Oh, of course. As one of the victims, this movie also stars weirdo of fame, Crispin Glover. I love Crispin Glover.
He's awesome in this.
I love him.
And this, the dialogue with him and his friend Teddy in this film is so classic. You got the dead fuck routine that goes between them. His friend is constantly
It's very Abbott and Costello-ish.
It says you're a dead fuck. What? A dead fuck?
And this was before computers were like in everybody's pockets. And he was like, "Oh, let me run this from the computer. Oh, you're dead fuck." That's what he says to Crispin Glover. Yeah. And Crispin Glover is like, another
shout out.
But he gets the hottest girl.
Great break dancing scene from Crispin Glover.
Wow.
In Friday the 13th the final chapter.
There's a really good death. Like one of my favorite deaths. What's your favorite death in Friday the 13th Part 4? You can't do this without saying it for favorite death in Friday the 13th Part 4. Favorite death.
Oh my God. I would probably say I do like Crispin Glover's death.
He gets a corkscrew in the hand, right?
Yeah, but like,
And
would you like the shower?
My favorite death is the guy in the lake. He gets it in the crotch.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible, but it's awesome.
Yeah, you know,
It's funny when you watch Freddy vs. Jason. It's kind of like an homage back to this film. Like you've got the naked girl. I'd like, well, fuck you then, and she kind of like, and she gets, yeah.
I don't mean to not remember this, but who did the effects for Friday the 13th Part 4? It's okay if you don't remember.
I believe it's Tom Savini.
Is it Tom Savini?
I think it's Tom Savini. Don't quote me. I could be wrong, but it's awfully Tom Savini if you watch it.
Yeah.
If it's not Tom Savini, somebody copyrighted it.
I love
copycatted it.
Yeah. I love. I guess I've always liked the fact that like Jason like mentally is still like this kind of child thing, and like it kind of takes a child to understand him, to know like kind of like how to defeat him, and I don't know. It was a cool death. Like it was interesting seeing like, you know,
Corey Feldman puts two and two together, and he, as a kid, I mean, he's like, I'm going to become Jason.
Yeah.
I'm going to fuck this guy up. And he shaves his head. It's all like raggedy.
Yeah, he decides to attack Jason here, which is where But see here, especially like with a child, like at least, you know, they're on a level playing field. You know,
I can't say nobody else had done that actually. Well,
that's true in part 2.
In part 2 at the end,
yeah, she puts on his mom's sweater and like kind of does.
So we see a pattern developing.
Yeah,
Jason is easy to like mess with because he's mentally inept.
Yeah.
But he still kills.
Yeah.
But we were left at the end of this film to believe that.
So like you could so you could like throw a Sudoku book at Jason.
He would chop it in half and come and get you.
Oh, okay.
He wouldn't even care.
He wouldn't slow him down.
You would throw it, and he would hit him in the face, and he'd be like, "But I love the look of Jason." As we met Ted White. Ted White is one of the best Jasons ever, and I will stand by that. Hardcore. I love the way he looks. Mm-hmm. He's got the black rotted head kind of thing going. Or no, his head's not rotted in this one because he's not dead. It's white. Right. It's flesh colored. It's black.
It's still disgusting
in part 6. Yeah. But Ted White is great as Jason in this. Mm-hmm. I mean, and you see Jason actually kind of defend himself in some ways. I mean, he gets like hacked in the hand with the machete.
Yeah, great film.
Obviously we have a lot to say about Friday the 13th Part 4.
Yeah.
Not Part 4, the final chapter.
Does no one call it Part 4? Because I mean, I still call it Part 4.
I tend to call it Part 4, but I know
it's not like on the postering where it doesn't say Friday. It never says Friday the 13th Part 4. Wait,
officially it's just called the final chapter. Friday the 13th final chapter, which is why a lot of people confuse that between like
the Roman numeral 4 isn't like on the poster art. Is it on the DVD? We're gonna have to look.
It's on something, but it's not on anything official. And,
I wonder if it's like on the big Blu-ray box set they released. I don't know. Screw it. Who cares?
Dun, dun, dun. Number one is a film that, you know, is such an awesome horror movie, and it inspired so much imagination and terror as a child, and it's touched all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you've seen it or not, the man of your dreams.
Yeah. So, you know, of course, number one horror film for the year 1984 is Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those things that just eats at the core of everyone. Everyone has dreams. Everyone has nightmares.
Yeah.
And the fear that some maniac can kill you in your dreams, and you have literally no control over it. That's frightening. Absolutely terrifying.
It's an idea, you know, being killed in your sleep. Oh my gosh, pardon me. I said sleep. Don't fall
asleep.
But it was such an original idea at the time, you know, to have this boogeyman, you know, in your dreams that could kill you. I mean, like, and plus, dude, have you ever seen a weapon like that used in a horror film? I mean,
the glove is the perfect villain weapon. I mean, it's just so... It's sleek. It is effective. It's just raw. And it's not perfected and clean and shiny. It's just like this terrible instrument. And we talked, when we did the Babadook review, we talked about lore, the creation of lore. No other film... I'm going to say this, and I know I say that a lot. I'm going to say this. No other film has created a more outstanding and pervasive lore than The Nightmare on Elm Street.
I will totally agree with you on that.
Because no film has ever rivaled that kind of creation.
No film also, if I may say so, no film has produced a baddie that so many people root for. I'm sorry, but...
Yeah, he's killing people.
You root for Freddy, you know?
What's he going to do this time?
Like, you know, even with like Mike and Jason, you're like, oh, I hope you can get away from him. But Freddy, you're like, no, I need to see Freddy, like, take this guy down.
Well, in Freddy versus Jason, you were going to like, he didn't kill many people. What's wrong?
Yeah. So, like, Robert Englund's...
He's the only character that's been played by the same person every time, too.
Well,
the only long-term slasher. I mean, you got Chucky. Okay,
what about Doug Bradley?
Okay, you got Pinhead. But Pinhead, I don't see him as a slasher.
Well, that's true. Anyway, whatever. But Robert Englund, you know, the mannerisms of the character, the
can't be done by anyone else.
No, definitely not. And of course, the character did get a little zanier as the series went on.
Everything to do with directors and
but that has to do with directors and writers and what they're going to do to appeal. But the first Nightmare on Elm Street, where you meet the man of your dreams, like what kid didn't see that scene where he's coming down the alley and like his arms stretch out and
so
like,
scary.
It's like and he's like, you know, he's like clawing like the sides of the wall, like, dude. That movie made me believe in the boogeyman.
I still remember my first time seeing that scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
I was probably 4, and I caught this on TV, and I was standing up next to the television. One of those TVs you had to click, and
most of us remember those.
I remember when I clicked the screen, I saw the trash can lid kind of spinning on the road, and then all of a sudden, and then you see Freddy coming around the corner, and he got his arms outstretched, and I was like, this is Freddy Krueger that all the kids have been talking about at school. This is not cool. I'm scared. I can't stop watching. I'm frightened.
Yeah.
And it happened, and I got up through the scene where Tina gets gut onto the ceiling, and then my mom heard it in the background, and she's like...
And then you had to turn it off, right?
Yeah.
Dude,
this is scary.
The scene where Tina is killed.
No.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what an achievement in filmmaking is.
Technically, I don't think there's any more difficult kill that's ever been done on screen.
Okay, dude, like this is what they did for those of you who don't know. This guy is watching his girlfriend like go up the wall and on the ceiling and like being attacked by this invisible entity that's slashing at her and everything else. But the POV is like right behind his shoulder, right? And like you see him like here, and of course you see her like going up, you know, the ceiling, the wall, and then the ceiling. Well, how did they achieve that back in the 80s before CG? They spun a room.
They built a room that was on the spinning axis
that they could spin, and she was going up the wall, but then of course she was on the ceiling because to her that was gravity.
The ceiling was the floor.
Yeah, but like what impresses me about that, the character of Rob, like he's sitting there watching like Rod. I apologize.
Rod Lane.
Rod. Up yours with a twirling lawnmower. But you know, the fact like you look at his hair, well, like he's like obviously upside down. He must be like strapped in somehow, but like none of his hairs like on his head, like knowing that like the POV, like he's actually the one upside down and she's like on the floor. Like, you know, gravity, the shot, it doesn't look like gravity betrays it at all. Like it's so realistic and so good. That is absolutely one of the best things ever done in a film. It's such a great effect, and there's a lot of great. How much would go into something like that? Like how much love and care?
That room was dangerous because they used it also in the same scene where they killed Johnny Depp. They have the blood scene where the blood flies. This big geyser.
Yeah,
it has to be like 50.
The old faithful of blood scenes.
I mean, it has to be like 1,000 gallons or more of blood spray out of the bed like a geyser. And again, they let gravity do the job. They spin the room really fast and blood just pours out of the bed. But the problem was electricity was running in the lights in the ceiling, and the blood spilled on that and almost fried, like spilled it, like when the room turned, it lost control because the liquids offset the balance of the room, and blood spilled out and hit like the like electrical room, like the soundboard.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
I think it fried somebody, but they were okay. But
okay.
This movie is a technological marvel, and one of my favorite things about Nightmare on Elm Street is you watch Freddy evolve from like this kind of like guy chasing someone, to a real mastermind at the end. He's really Freddy at the end of this film.
Yeah.
What?
I want my mother and friend again.
What?
Like,
he very like
he evolves so much.
Like he's very like almost like creepy old man hobo-ish, like the first time which is still creepy in its own right.
He's running around town with the new wave music. I mean,
yeah, well, it's like he has like that cackle. Like the first time you meet Freddy and like he like sees Nancy and he says, "This is God," and then like he chases after. He's like, "Ah!" Like it's
he's like just kind of like
it's kind of like a weird cackle kind of thing, and you don't really see that much.
It's like a witch kind of thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting, and I know it wasn't originally how he wanted to end the film, but I really liked the ending of this film where I remember being a little kid and Nancy like going away in the car, and obviously you see you realize it's still a dream sequence because, like, you know, the red and green thing comes over the cover and comes over the car. The part where like Freddy like reaches out through the door and like grabs her mother and like drags her and like pulls her through the door window.
It's cheesy, but I feel like
it's cheesy.
It set the tone for Freddy for the rest of the series.
Like that scared the crap out of me as a kid, and just the fact that this character is so three-dimensional, like this character is just. He's not like a voiceless entity that just dumbly kills you. Like Freddy will kill you. He'll give you reasons why. This movie is so great. And you know what?
We'll talk about it a lot more though eventually.
Fred Krueger was a bad person and he did some bad things. Why couldn't they? I just want to say it. We don't really have to talk about it, but why'd they have to remake this movie?
That's definitely a different video entirely.
Fine.
We are running out of time that I set aside. We're at 32 minutes. So anyway, we are going to go through the list. What was the special thing we talked about? Special
recognition, of course, goes to Ghostbusters, one of the greatest films ever made. We just had a hard time fitting it on just a simply horror movie list for 1984.
5 was Children of the Corn. Didn't really deserve to be in a list, but it ended up being in a list.
Yeah. 4, of course, was Chud, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers.
Number 3, Gremlins by Joe Dante.
Number 2, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter, one of the finest entries in the series.
And number 1, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
One of the greatest horror classics ever made. That's really all I've got to say.
We were pretty abrupt about that ending, but I mean, I set aside.
I didn't realize we'd been talking this friggin' long.
We went on for a long time. We set aside a time limit for the recorder. Anyway, I'm Sam.
And I'm Evan.
Thank you for watching our Top 5 for 1984.
85 is coming soon, and it's going to be a great year.
It's so hard.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Good night.